Okay, quick sound check, 1, 2, 3. And hopefully audio is okay. So we can get started tonight. Okay, audio should be coming through okay. Just a quick general advice and risk warning disclaimer. Note that any advice given is deemed to be of general nature, as the information or advice given does not take into account your particular objectives, financial situations, or needs. Therefore, at all times, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice before you act further. CFDs and Forex are leveraged products and thus carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for everyone. You can lose more than your initial deposit, so you should ensure CFD and Forex trading meets your investment objectives. Strategies and charts used in this presentation are for example only. You are reminded that past performance is not indicative of future performance. Okay. There are not much to see in tonight, but there's actually one case study that I want to take a look at. That is actually Aussie USD. But type in your request and we'll go through it. Once we have the time, we can talk a little bit more about using pivot points tonight, because I think that was asked about 3 weeks ago and I haven't got the time to get through it. I think we do have a little bit of a time because I think the market's just waiting for that panel with the ECB in about an hour's time. We have Jerome Powell, Christine Lagarde, and Andrew Bailey basically on the same panel talking about monetary policy. So any further information on that? Amongst the big three, we'll probably find out. Audio video is okay. Good. Tips for using FIB on yen. How much space do we need to put our stop loss if using FIB? Glad to have you here too, Elisha God. Okay, and bless you too. How much space do we need to put our stop loss if using FIB? Depends. Specifically, which yen pairs are we looking at? Aussie yen, Euro yen, sterling yen, dollar yen. But while I'm waiting for further requests to come in, I do want to talk a little bit about what's the market doing. First in, we've got the Aussie USD. This one is a little bit flat. You are at the lower end of the range. And when I say flat for the Aussie USD, this is on the daily and I can literally do this FIB. We got stuck at 100%, and then if I reverse it on the new FIB, we are approaching 100% as well. We basically have 68.50 as our support, and we are actually very close to that support on the Aussie USD. So do pay close attention to 68.50. This could 68.50. There we go. Okay, so pay close attention to 68.50 because this is likely going to be a strong support for the Aussie USD. We could potentially see bounces off coming from 68.50. So I want you to pay close attention to Aussie USD. I know some of you are trading Aussie USD, some of you don't. If you're new to Aussie USD, this one is a little bit unique. Actually, it's actually a good case study if we want to focus a little bit more on the Aussie USD. Now, in terms of range, we are looking at resistance coming in at around 72.50 for the range. Okay, that is right around there, 72.50. So if we take a look at the range, it will be from this high to that low there. It's about 436 pips. That's huge. I know this is a daily range, and how is it relevant to your intraday trading? We'll take a look at that, but for now I want you to focus on 68.50 and 72.50. So this is more like an educational outlook, so you guys get to know what's going on in my head when I look at the market. And I find the Aussie USD to be actually a really great example if you want to know more about, market being overbought or sold, bouncing off support and stuff like that. We are very close to that support. And if I take you to the pivots, okay, let me hide the previous day pivots. Just one, focus on today. All right, the market's been traded below pivot for the whole day. It just bounces off support 2 and support 3. It's actually below 68.50. The probability of this one going towards 68 right now, it's actually pretty tough, considering this. We are potentially looking for an intraday bounce. This is coming in around 68.60. Okay, so very close to 68.50. We've got resistance kind of at around 69. But let me just bring out the stochastics. This one just came off the oversold region. Is it a slight divergence in there? Yes and no, but I want you to focus on the momentum right now. This is right now pointing to the upside. So if you're planning a trade right now or today, this could actually be a good trade if you have your stop loss below 68.50 if you want to. In terms of target, we have a lot of room to go for this one, but if we go by Fibs, then you're probably looking at around 69.50, and that would be at resistance 1. Now, if you do this, the risk-reward ratio becomes 1-to-1. However, if this one progresses above 69, you can then move your stop losses to support 1 or support 2. What we're looking for is actually a return towards pivot and potentially resistance 1. And consider this is going to be a range-bound market for the Aussie USD. So there's actually a lot of room to go here, and especially if this one goes above 69 cents. Preemptively, if you jump in using Fibs, I believe it has to be this. It's actually this one. So the break above 23.6 is actually a break above support 1. So if you look at the projections there, we are looking at a potential return towards 61.8 to 78.6. That's between pivot 1 and resistance 1. Now we'll talk more about pivot in a minute, but right now this could potentially be a good long trade to look into for the Aussie USD, because the condition for this one is actually range bound. We are trading within the range. We're not counter trending it or counter trading it. We're not going against any trend or anything at all. Pivot still up there around 69.25. Price move above 69, we could potentially see further push higher, 69.25 to 69.50 for the Aussie USD. Okay. I'm good. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm great. I'm doing great. How are you guys? Okay, so yeah, I just need to jump in really quickly on the Aussie USD. If you have any questions about pivot, we'll come back to pivots later on, but I need to go through a few other stuff as well. Today, there's a particular reason why I want to show pivot points today, because one, most of the market right now is actually flat, is actually sideways. And if you take a look at, we'll take a look at that Euro Yen in a minute, but I want to show you Euro USD. This is on the daily. You can see it's actually really flat. The momentum is actually flatlining. We are just bouncing off just slightly above support at 1.05 on the Euro USD. Pound USD, I believe it's actually trading below 1.02 to 1.2250. The daily stochastic is actually crossed down, but if you take a look at the whole thing, it's actually really flat. Now if you're thinking about pound USD, this is the hourly time frame on pound USD. As you can see, it's actually really confusing because it was flat and then it spiked down a little bit. We've got support coming in at 1.2150, but ultimately there's a potential for this one to go towards 1.21. And I'll show you that through pivots later on. But let me just answer that question on Euro Yen. A few hours ago, I opened a long position in the hourly. Okay. Let me just clear this away. Long position on the Euro Yen a few hours ago. Long position in the hourly using fib and momentum above 20, but price got turned around, and it's hit my stop loss. A few hours ago is how many hours ago? Is it this one or is it this one? So any further information on this would be great. First of all, if you're thinking about fibs and whatnot, you could be drawing this, and this could be too short. This could be the one that stop you out. This one, first of all, this fib is only like 1, 2, 3, 4 bars down, so it's not really that accurate. By saying that, we still need to consider this swing here. Okay, this one has projected extension because this one broke below 78.6%. So it's either too early or it's either too late. It's probably too early because if you got stopped out here, the momentum hasn't turned around yet. So a few hours ago is specifically how many hours ago? And let me have a look at it. Okay, while we wait for that, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about what I'm looking at through pivots. Okay, so we got Aussie USD right now, risk reward ratio is 1-to-1. And then pound USD, this one is actually at support 1. However, let me just show you what happened in the past 3 days. Okay, so with pound USD for 2 days straight, it actually hit support 2. Now day 1, we started the day below pivot. It tried to came back up to pivot, unable to break through it. Now there's a potential for this one to return towards 1.21. That's at support 2 for the pound USD. So think about it. The overall trend on the pound USD is actually potential continuation to the downside. We've got a little bit of support coming in at 1.2150, but it's actually not going to be strong enough. If there's an hourly close below that 1.2150, we could potentially see further drop towards 1.21. So you don't want to be caught long on the pound USD. The Aussie USD, it's actually a little bit more flat. Pound USD on the stochastics on the daily has just turned down. So what we're looking at here, if we bring out the Ichimoku cloud as well, you can see the Kijun sign is still pointing to the downside. The Tenkan sign is actually flat. That means short-term trend for the pound USD is actually flat. This might move sideways for a little bit before the downtrend continues. If you take a look at the overall cloud on the pound USD, it still points to the downside. So what we're looking at for pound USD is actually a break below 1.2150. If it does break below 1.2150, then I much prefer to go short pound USD. But I'm not taking an intraday trade for pound USD. I much prefer to wait it out on the daily. Right? If you guys want to trade the pound USD, just be mindful. If this one breaks below 1.2150, then be prepared to cut your long positions. If you are planning for really short term, like 5 minutes, 15 minutes trade or whatever, and take a look at the 50 minutes here. The momentum is actually going to be crossing up soon, but the range is not going to be great, right? I mean, we're potentially seeing a bounce from 1.2150, bouncing off support 1 as well, but it's unlikely to hit pivot. Range is just too big for it to hit pivot. However, it could potentially go up to where the Ichimoku cloud is here, basically around 1.2180, 1.2190. You might skip out a little bit above 1.2175. So if you're planning a short trade on this one, and you think about, okay, I'm trading on a 50-minute time frame, the momentum is going to turn up, you could potentially go long. But make sure your stop losses, it's not too far away from 1.2150. I would have it around 1.2135. That's kind of the max I want to go with. In terms of target to the upside, you really want to be looking at around 1.2175. But again, risk to reward ratio is not going to be great, but it really depends on your trading strategy. If you're trading on a 5-minute time frame, 15-minute time frame, this could be a potential for you. But for those keeping an eye out on the hourly time frame, it's a hard pill to swallow right now if we are planning to go long on this one, just basing this on the bounce from support. Momentum still points to the downside, so this is unlike the scenario that I just showed you with the Aussie USD. Okay, so we got Euro Yen. Let's go back to Euro Yen. I've got a long position at 143.36. 143.36. Okay, basing on what entry is that? 636. Okay, around 11 hours ago. So about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right around here. Yeah. Let me just highlight that. Why are we basing along here using FIBs? Because stochastic turns up, but I don't think we have a 23.6 break on that one. We do. Okay. Stop loss is 142.80. Okay. 11 hours ago is actually here. Stochastic turns up. Euro yen. 143.36. Okay. I don't think you're doing it wrong, but I think it's a little bit too early because you are probably forgetting that this one is actually below 78.6. This one closes below 78.6, maybe about 14 hours ago. So, not to confuse you, but to answer Albert here, you're probably forgetting that there was one cycle before it and actually break below 78.6%. So, but from a technical point of view, if you go in using FIBs and using your stop losses, I think you're doing it right. At least it got stopped out instead of being dragged down to 127.2. But my answer to that is that you're probably forgetting this cycle. This one is a little bit more complete. You can draw a fib from there to there. This one is around 61.8%. This is a little bit more accurate. Okay, so hopefully that answers that. Okay, Swiss yen, how far can it go? We'll take a look at Euro yen in a minute, but Swiss yen, how far can it go? Let's go on to the daily. I don't think we have anything. We've got this one. That's 200%. That's done. 142, 144. How far can it go? Potentially towards 144. Too close to 144. We might expect a little bit more of a short-term correction, potentially. Let me just double check. Okay. If you have a position on Swiss yen, your stop loss will still need be below 142. There's no FIBs that can actually be used to project any further targets. We are past those targets. That's 200% extension. Okay, so if you are planning to go long, unfortunately, your stop loss is gonna be at 142. Right around there. Now, if you're trading this, you probably want to leave a little bit more room to go. Instead of putting your stop loss at 143, maybe you still want to have it around 142.50. I think this one has room towards 144. Momentum still points to the upside. I believe the daily is still above 80. Yep. So I think there's actually room towards 144. Should you go short Swiss yen? I don't think it's a great idea, but let's check on pivots as well. How far can Swiss yen go today? 144 is at around resistance 3 as well. I don't think we're going to be looking at 144 tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. Asian session probably, but I don't think you're going to be looking at 144 tonight on Swiss yen. If it does happen, 144, that's going to be the limit for the day anyway, because that's where the resistance 3 from the pivot is going to be located as well. It's also a psychological number, 144. So keep an eye out on 144 if you are long Swiss yen. If you want to trail your stop loss, move it to 142.50, not 142. Okay, Swiss yen. Last week you promised to inform us on books articles. Oh my god, yes, on Ichimoku and its connection to stochastics. Namdeb, I completely skipped out on this one, but I'll give you something. I promise I'll give you something next week. I'll find out the book. I don't think we have any good books, in all honesty, in English that kind of encompasses how Ichimoku works. Okay, there are bits and pieces there, but the whole thing is actually really complex. It's actually it's not something that's easy to swallow. I tried doing a webinar on the proper way of looking at Ichimoku Kinko here, and actually causes a lot more confusion. But I'll come back with a book on that one next week. Dollar CAD is short at 1.2870. Stop loss at 1.29. Okay, let's take a look at dollar CAD. Dollar CAD, we've got a short at 1.2695, 1.2690 to 1.2870, 1.2870, yeah. Targets at 1.28, stop loss at 1.29. Let me just draw that in. Right around there, stop loss is at 1.29. That's beyond the range, should be okay. Targeting 1.28 on dollar Canadian. Just a word of caution, we've got that talk going on in 40 minutes time. So for now, yeah, you definitely need to have your stop loss at 1.29. I don't think you can have it any higher than that. If you want to give it a little bit more room, you can go 1.2910, but don't really place, you know, the furthest you can go is actually 1.2925. Can your stop loss be adjusted to break even now? Let's see. You're probably still going on by this fib. That's already at 61.8. Your break even is actually at 38.2. I think it would be a great idea to move your stop loss to break even once this hour close. So you gotta give you just give this hour a pass. We might see them move back towards the Ichimoku cloud, but if the hourly candle is still below the Ichimoku cloud, then you can move your stop loss to break even. That's completely fine, because your initial stop loss is completely okay. It's at 1.29. It's actually beyond the 0% anyway, so that should be okay. Momentum still points to the downside. Just don't rush into moving your stop losses too quickly. Stick to 1.29 in 40 minutes, then you can move it to your break even on 1.2870 for dollar CAD. But you got to do it quickly, because the panel is going to start in 40 minutes. When that panel starts, I think there's going to be a lot of volatility. Hopefully there's actually going to be volatility, because the market has been quiet for the past 3 days. Equities is starting to climb up, but we don't actually see any weakness in dollar yet. We actually see dollar strength in the market. So whatever you're doing with dollar Canadian, just make sure that you move that stop loss to break even immediately after that hourly candle close below the Ichimoku cloud. If it doesn't close below the Ichimoku cloud, you need to give it room. But if you feel that this trade could go wrong because of the panel discussion, then move to your stop loss to break even. That's completely fine. Okay, so let's take a look at did we take a look at Euro USD or not yet? Okay, Euro USD is trading below pivot level. Sorry, there we go. Do we see resistances? Yes, I do see potential resistances. Are we going to be trading back below 1.05? Okay, here goes. If the hourly candle closes back below 1.05, we could potentially see further weakness on the Euro USD. One of the key indicators, actually, this one is actually going to be closing below the Tenkan Sen. If that's the case, the Kijun still points to the downside. The Ichimoku Cloud still points to the downside. We are trading below pivot. There's a potential move towards support 1. That's at 1.0480. Now, in terms of range, you're not going to be expecting, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to be looking at a 50 to 100 pip target. I don't think that's going to be the case. If we take a look at the current situation, if it does close below 1.05, then it could potentially just move about 20 pips to the downside. Support to, it's actually around 60 pips. So give or take, you are going to be looking at around 20 pips of range. Should you go short on the Euro USD right now? That's the question. I don't think it's time yet. I don't think there's any need to rush. The stochastic hasn't crossed the slow stochastics yet. So I don't think there's any rush. This one still trades above 1.05. So for those that are looking at the Euro USD, is it a great time to jump in right now for any swing trades? I don't think it's a great time to jump in for any swing trades. Is it time to go in for a quick short? I don't think it's time for a quick short either. We are dealing with 1.05. Now, if you can take a look at what happened in the past 7 hours, it actually closes below 1.05 and then immediately bounces back up. So we are looking at a strong support at 1.05, a support that won't be significant unless the daily candle closes below it. So with the Euro USD, it is actually going to be a little bit flat. If you're trading this on the 5-minute time frame or the 15-minute time frame, that's completely okay. But if you're planning to trade this on the hourly time frame and above, I think the Euro USD is a skip for today. Unless the daily closes below 1.05, then you can probably take a look at the Euro USD again tomorrow. Or the overall tone is still pointing to the downside. Downside risk still remains. In terms of the Senkos, they are actually starting to spread in range. We could see the momentum speed up to the downside for Euro USD if it loses 1.05 on the Euro USD. Okay. That's Euro USD. Next up is Euro Yen. There was a request on Euro Yen. Euro Yen might want to be a little bit more careful, especially intraday trade. This is actually trading within the Ichimoku cloud, so I don't think this is a great thing to trade right now. The momentum is actually crawling above 80, but it's actually looking pretty flat, right? This is currently trading above pivot. It could go to 144. Why is it so similar? Did we just talk about 144? I believe Swiss yen was around 144 as well, right? So keep an eye out on 144. That's where the resistance 1 is located. So if you have a long position, that's completely fine. But do not go short on Euro Yen. I don't think it's time to go in short yet. I think it's too early if you're planning to go short. Is it time for you to go long? If you already have a long position, that's completely okay. I think Albert got stopped out here. It went down, took his stop losses, and it bounces back up, right? So maybe it's a good idea to add in pivot points just as backup, because if you take a look at the pivots, it actually bounces off support 1, right? Very close to 142.50. Maybe that could be in use in tandem with Fibonacci, because we are looking at this Fibonacci, right? 127.2, obviously Fibonacci is more accurate, but pivot is there. It bounces off support 1. Okay, so you can take a look at this one. You can say, all right, it bounces off 127.2, bounces off support 1, potential return towards pivot. That's basically what we are eyeing for on the USD. Okay, so is it a great time to go in long on Euro Yen? I don't think so. Is it time to go in short on Euro Yen? Not really. I much prefer to just wait for the correction to happen. One, we could potentially see a return towards 143.25, just where the Tenkan Sen is, and then it could potentially bounces off. Or it could close above the Ichimoku cloud and it'll just trade higher towards pivot, but by then your risk reward ratio wouldn't be that great, because if you are trading this above the Ichimoku cloud, your stop losses are going to be there, your target is just going to be there. It's not going to be worth it. But if it bounces off there around 143.15 or 143, I would be okay to go in for a long if it bounces off 143 to 143.15. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the range right now. If it bounces off right around there, this is a great trade to look into, but I need price to be moving like so to jump in for a long. If it does close below 143 this hour, then no go on this trade. If it does close below 143 in 30 minutes time, no go on this trade. Okay, so any hourly close below 143 wouldn't be a great deal. I need to see price touches 143, 143.15, and then bounces up. If it's inside the HMO club, that's completely fine. At least the risk is now minimized. From the risk to reward ratio, it makes sense. You could only be risking about maybe 60 to 40 pips for maybe about 80 to 90 pips gain. I think it's a great deal. But don't do it right now because I don't know how far the correction is going to be. Because if we go by Fibs, then the correction would actually be like so. Okay, we are looking for a potential bounce between 50 and 61.8%. As long as it doesn't close below 61.8%, I'm okay with that. But you need to consider this. If it does break below 61.8%, which is also 143 yen, which is a round number and a psychological price. If the hourly closes below 143, you need to cancel out all your long trades because we are in for a much deeper correction. We could potentially see a return back to 142.50. Okay, so be mindful on the euro yen. Don't rush into the euro yen. I don't think it's time to rush into euro yen. I'm giving you all the potential risks available on the euro yen. If you want me to show you everything, including the pivots, it's all going to be messy, but take a pick. Okay, I'm gonna hide pivots because it's just gonna mess this euro yen outlook up. Okay, if it doesn't close below 143, it bounces off 143, that's completely fine. That's where you want to jump in for a long, potentially towards 144 on the euro yen. But going short, even for scalping, it's a huge risk. If you do plan to go short, just make sure your stop losses are above 143.85. Okay, if you do want to go short right now, maybe you want to go for that 143 correction. Make sure your stop losses are up there. Just think about it. Risk reward ratio is not going to be great. You are going against the trend. You are risking about 40 pips for a potential 20 pips gain. I don't think it's worth the risk. Okay, so just wait for this one to bounce off. Any tips to trade in yen pairs like timing, pip targets, intraday, etc.? When we talk about yen pairs, we are really talking about different stuff. Is there news coming in? I'm sorry. It's just final GDP number. We don't use consecutive GDP string anyway, so it's a medium impact news. We don't really quite focus on that one. Okay, any tips to trade in yen crosses like timing, pip targets, intraday, etc.? Okay, when we talk about yen pairs, euro yen, sterling yen, dollar yen, Aussie yen, they all have different characteristics. In comparison to dollar yen, for example, dollar yen is a small range bound. Euro yen and sterling yen, they're a little bit more volatile. Spreads get a little bit wider as well, especially in sterling yen. Now it's okay, but it used to be really bad. It used to be one of the most expensive pairs to trade, sterling yen. Okay, so in terms of volatility, they're actually different. So I don't think there's actually one strategy that's going to fit all. If you are intraday trading on the dollar yen, let me bring up the dollar yen so you can see what's going on here. So here's a pivot for dollar yen. we are talking about a market that's actually really volatile right now. But if I zoom out and you can see what's going on here, it's actually more like flat, and then it spikes up, it comes back down, spikes up, right? If you take a look at the range, I think dollar yen right now, it's not a normal market condition for dollar yen. Overall, for any yen pairs, I don't think it's a normal market range that we're talking about. Yens are really weak right now, so we see this being pushed down a lot. Now, if we take a look at the dollar yen, typical daily range is around 100 pips. Now, this again, to me, this is not normal. Okay, if by going so, if you take a look at the previous range, 100, 123, we could potentially be looking at, say, an average of 100. So this one potentially push even higher, you know, towards 137, 136.80. But this is not a normal market condition for the dollar yen. Just a reminder, okay? Dollar yen typically doesn't move like this. It's only because the weaker, yen, the Japanese yen being weak, that it produces 100 pip range. If the issue is not there, the dollar yen, it's actually a little bit more flat, right? If we don't have the whole interest rate hikes in the US and then the Bank of Japan being really dovish, I don't think we're going to be looking at the situation. So this is going to change. If you watch this recording in, let's say, 6 months time or a year's time, it's actually going to be different. Okay, but if you take a look at this, one of the few things on why I want to bring out pivot is that you can actually kind of look at the daily range it produces, because it relies on the high, low, and close of the previous day to produce the pivot point. That way you can actually look at the range here. We can look at the dollar yen. It was trading at 100 pips range, 127. So today I'm estimating, you know, it could potentially move to about 100 pip in range. We only just did 80. So I think there's a little bit more room to go on dollar yen. Okay, if you take a look at the momentum, sure, there's enough room for this one to actually go higher. And what I'm potentially looking is that there's a potential return towards 137. Now, if I put this into perspective, then it kind of makes sense. It kind of matches the range yesterday. So is it going to be a much bigger range than yesterday? Probably not. But is there room for it to go? Yes, we got resistance 1. Is it going to go to resistance 2? Potentially. Okay, or could the range be like that to the downside towards support 2? Yeah, that could be the case, but more like this towards support 1. That's going to give you about 120 pip range as well. So when we talk about range of the market, it's going to be different from one pair to another. So don't lump in euro yen, sterling yen, and dollar yen as the same. They typically have different strategies to work around with. Dollar yen, even though it's a 100 pip range, it's more of a sideways market condition. Sterling yen and euro yen, they're a little bit more on the trending side. Okay, so yeah, we got news. Yeah, we have the final GDP. I believe it's at minus 1.6%, so nothing major. Okay, what's next? We've got that, and then I got a sell position with New Zealand yen. Okay, New Zealand yen. 84.80. Stop loss at 85.35. 84.80, you got to sell. Stop loss is at 85.35. Why so far? And your target is 84. Okay. Why the trade? I see New Zealand yen will go down at any moment. What do you think? Will it go down? From the hourly perspective, I don't think it's time for this one to go down yet. One of the few questions that I have is probably why take the trade so far down close to support. Well, anyway, the trade is taken, but as long as you have your stop losses, I think it should be okay. I don't think the stop loss needs to be that far above 85.35 unless you're purposely doing it just to be above the Ichimoku cloud. But even if that's the case, you can actually move it to 85.25. That's okay. But if you want to have it at 85.35, that's completely okay. Risk reward ratio is still great. You're risking about 54 pips for 80 pips gain. Is it gonna go down? Momentum still points to the upside for the hourly time frame, so I don't think it could go down at any moment, unless it. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like. It could eventually go down, but I am not seeing this right now. I'm just not seeing this on New Zealand yen at the moment. The overall tone for New Zealand yen, although it's choppy, it's actually still at the upper range, right? Momentum is flat on the daily. We are trapped between 84 and 86. But if you're trading to target 84, I think that's okay. Just make sure that you have your stop loss. Is it going to get to 84 immediately? That's a tough one because before 84, we actually still have this one at around 84.40. Just right around there. Okay, so it might not go straight down to 84. It will take a lot of yen strength to actually pressure New Zealand yen that low towards 84. Intraday support, we're not even that far yet. Okay, let me bring it up on this. Okay. When we talk about 84, that's actually beyond support too. So in terms of pivot, sure, it's trading below the pivot. It hasn't even touched support 1. So what I'm trying to say is for the day, it's actually very hard for this one to go down to 84 unless there's something big in the next few hours or so, which I don't think that's going to be the case, because the attention is going to be on the monetary policy panel hosted by ECB. The movement is more going to be on the dollar side rather than the yen side. So New Zealand yen, for this one to go to 84 tonight, I could be wrong. But I mean, if we take a look at the supports available here and how it's actually doing right now, a quick drop to 84 might be too hard. Okay, but if you're already short, then just have your stop loss as it is, leave it as it is. You have a plan, stick to your plan, and I think that's the way to trade. It's not my opinion, it's not anyone's opinion. You have an opinion on this one, stick to it, right? If it's not an intraday trade, and are you willing for this one to become a swing trade? If you're okay with it, then in terms of resistance, in terms of stop loss, I think it's completely fine. I think you put enough room. You gave the market enough room because that's actually beyond the Ichimoku cloud on the hourly time frame. Not too far away from the latest swing high. I think this is actually going to be okay. So if you have your stop loss and that's your view, right? I mean, you create a trading plan. There's a reason why you jump in on this trade. Okay, that reason doesn't need to be verified by others like me or anyone else. We are not able to give you that verification. I can give you my view. My view is that could this one go to 84? Yeah, potentially it could go for the correction towards 84, but we are looking at the bottom side of the range. Before 84, we got 84.50, 84, we got 84.75. There's a lot of support here with New Zealand yen. So is it going to go to 84 in one go? I doubt it, but yeah, who knows, right? So that's just my opinion. If I'm a scalper, what strategy will I use? That's actually a good one. So if I'm scalping, I am gonna use. Can I use this? Okay. Um, so I'm sorry, I'm just making some materials on pivot, so that's why I was looking at pivots the whole day. So if I'm scalping, what kind of strategy will I use? So I prefer to be on 50 minutes. So if I'm scalping, this is actually the resistance that I'm waiting for it to break. So if there's a 50-minute close above that, then I actually want to go long. In terms of support, it's actually not going to be at 1.05. It's actually going to be at this low here. Okay, so I actually trade without indicators if I'm going to be scalping. That's how I used to do it. I don't like the result, and that's why I don't like scalping, because you're risking too much. First of all, I'm not going to be using any FIPS or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to get rid of 1.05. I don't have anything on the chart except for the range. Okay, so if I'm looking at the market right now and I say, like, you know what, I'm going to jump in for an intraday trade, I'll wait for the 15 minutes to actually close above. Oops. Sorry. I'll wait for this one to actually trade above this. Okay. So maybe in the case of this one here, I would go in long. I would have my stop loss here. Okay, my range is probably around 50 pips, and that's basically my target as well. Now, if we take a look at this one, as it's closer to 1.057089, you know, you can go for another extra pip towards 1.06. But if you're going for 1.06, might as well go to 1.0625, right? That's gonna net me that. Why 1.0625? You all know 1.0625 on the Euro USD. That's the daily cap that we are eyeing for. Okay, so on the case of the Euro USD, if it does break above 1.0535 on a 50-minute time frame, then this is how I'm actually gonna trade. I don't trade any lower than 50 minutes. I don't like dealing with 5 minutes. I would never touch 1 minute. So when we talk about scalping, my limit is actually 50 minutes. Anything below that, I actually don't have any good strategy. It's just way too risky. Okay, you are going to risk twice than what you are going to be targeting if you are trading on 5 minutes or the 1 minute time frame. So 15 minutes time frame is kind of the limit for me. I will use this to trade intraday. Is it in the context of scalping? I don't know. I don't think this is in the context of scalping, because my target, my view is actually going to be from the hourly or the daily time frame. But if you don't have that knowledge and say, yeah, I just want to trade the range, then you can go 50-50, right? A risk reward ratio 1-to-1, you're risking 52, then go for 52 as your potential target. As long as you get a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, probability is going to play out, right? 1-to-1 risk reward ratio is still not great. You could have a winning ratio that's actually 40%. If you have 1-to-2 risk reward ratio, you're still going to be on top. Just think about it that way. 1-to-1 risk reward ratio is actually not that great. I don't like the concept. My experience tells me that I fiddle with it. I played around with it. Risk reward ratio that's actually not 1-to-1, it's actually not worth trading. That's my point of view. Okay, it could be different. Scalpers are going to say, you know what, I risk 10 pips for 5 pips. That's completely fine. That's their own strategy. But for me, you are asking for my opinion. My opinion is this: I want to be consistent, and I need to be consistent in maintaining my equity growth. If I don't see potential growth in my equity and I'm risking more, that just doesn't click with me. Why don't I use the last swing for this one? I don't, because there's actually a huge range here that I need to monitor. I know the swing you're probably going to be talking about is actually this one, like so, right? What's the point of using this swing if I know that there's actually one swing over there? So when we talk about swings, what makes swing important is that that swing needs to create a new high or new low. If it doesn't create a new low or new high yet, then it's actually still trapped within a range. That's the whole idea with breakouts, right? So we cannot trade breakouts unless you're talking about a potential short like this. If price goes down like so, yeah. So if that's the case, I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna get rid of that. The other potential scenario is this one closes like that. I'm gonna give you that perspective right now. If you go in short right here, you do know your stop loss is gonna be there. There's no questioning that because it's still within the range. This is what I'm talking about for scalpers. Are you willing to risk 33 pips to gain 16 pips? So yeah, I mean, if you're okay with this kind of scenario, then completely fine with it. But just think about it. If you're risking a lot more than what you're trying to get, in the long run, you're just gonna burn your equity. Okay? Just think about it. Do I have any insight about Bank of England, ECB, and the Fed today in 10 minutes time? In all honesty, I don't. They're probably going to talk. FOMC is going to. The Fed's going to talk about why they're being hawkish, how hawkish they're going to be. I don't think they can be that hawkish. Maybe we'll see 175 basis point hike, and then, 50 basis point hikes after that. I think I'll put out a note. The cap was 3.3% on the interest rate. That was actually down from 3.5% expectation. So that's. I think the Fed needs to be really careful, and the ECB is actually going to be on the spot. All right. Bank of England, I think they're going to be pretty neutral. I think they're doing what they can to fight off inflation. They've been hiking rates. At least they're hiking rates, so they can say that they're trying to do something with the inflation over there. But ECB is going to be it's actually going to be tough for ECB. So be careful with the Euro USD or Euro Yen, because any comments coming out from the ECB, that's likely going to create a really volatile market tonight. So with the ECB, the concern is they are not able to hike rates, at least not immediately or soon enough, because remember 2 weeks ago the yield went off in Italy, right? So they need to put a stop into that, otherwise it's going to spiral into more of a debt crisis 2.0. That happened 10 years ago with Greece. Okay, do I have any insights on what's going on tonight? I don't. Okay, what's going on in 7 minutes? I don't. I don't know what the question is going to be on the panel. What I do know is that Jerome Powell's participating, Andrew Bailey's participating, Christine Lagarde is there. She's hosting it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, Euro USD starts to bounce off. Has Aussie USD bounce off? Yeah. Aussie USD is okay. It bounces off support one. So did anyone pick this up, or are you planning to trade this? You can trade this after an hourly close above 69 if we do see that. Okay, so if you're waiting for this one, any hourly close above 69 will likely take this up to 69.50 for the Aussie USD. Okay, New Zealand yen done. We've got requests for Bitcoin and Nasdaq 100. Ooh. Okay, I think I can get rid of this FIPS. I don't need that. I'll leave 14,000, 14,500. Can get rid of it. This is gone. 13,000, I'm gonna leave it. 12,550, I'm gonna delete it. Support and resistance here, I will need to use this back again in the future. Is it gonna move towards 11,000? can Nasdaq 100 go below 10,000? That's actually a tough one. 10,000 is still far off. Even if I go by the daily, can Nasdaq go below 10,000? It could, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows? But it's so far away right now. It just doesn't click. It doesn't register. I'm looking at the daily chart for Nasdaq 100, and we are just so far away. Okay, so for those that are wanting to use pivots, but you're looking at the daily time frame, you can actually use. By the way, there was a question on what pivot I use on TradingView. Is actually pivot point standard. Okay, if you're looking at pivot on the daily, you want to have a weekly pivot. Okay, so this is your weekly pivot. If we look at 10,000, that is actually around support 4, support 5. It's so far away. I don't think we're going to see that in 1 week. If it goes below 10,000, that means the market has crashed in the US. As simple as that. So could it go below 10,000? It could. I mean, I'm not one to say that it can't go below 10,000, but I'm just saying it's quite a long-term view to expect a market to go below 10,000 for the Nasdaq 100. There's a lot of other things to think about. I don't think we need to look that far into 10,000. Okay, Bitcoin, sure. We can look at Bitcoin and then we can wrap it up if there's no other questions. Bitcoin on the daily. Why is this squish like this? So we played around with the scenario last week, I believe. This one. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago that we looked at this one? We played around with this one. Okay, but I think that was the same question. This is more on breakout. Yeah. Still within the range. Support one at 19,820. I mean, if I take a look at Bitcoin from the daily, I think we're building a little bit more support here. Momentum still points to the upside right now. It is a little bit flat though, so range is huge and it's actually flat. I can get rid of this one. I don't think I need that. I don't think I need this because we actually have a lower range. So the resistance, we still have 22,000. Right now you want to be focused on 20,000, I believe. No, we are trading below 20,000. Yeah, no, around 20,000. Okay, any daily close below 20,000 could potentially trigger this move back down towards 18,000, but momentum doesn't point that way. Momentum still points to the upside, so we're actually going to be seeing potential demands coming in at around 20,000. In the case if it does break below 20,000 on the daily, then we could potentially see further push lower, but I don't think we're going to be looking at 18,000. We're probably just going to be looking at a bounce around 19,000 for Bitcoin. So this is actually improved a lot. This is a lot better, right? And if we take a look at the hourly time frame, if we go with 19,000, I just don't see that move. What I'm seeing is this: there could potentially be a bounce off right now for Bitcoin. So if you're planning to grab Bitcoin, grab it at 20,000, grab it at 19,000. I don't see the potential for this one to go to 18,000 at this point in time. Momentum still points to the upside on the hourly time frame as well as on the daily time frame. For hourly time frame, it's still going to be pointing to the upside, bouncing off Ichimoku cloud. So there's actually a lot of support right now for Bitcoin at around 20,000. Okay, so I'm good with Bitcoin at these two support level. It's just 1,000 for Bitcoin. It's nothing much, right? I mean, if you take a look at the whole daily on Bitcoin, it bounces off 19,000. Take the whole picture, it actually bounces off. It actually never closed below 20,000. So The last time it touches 20,000, it bounces up to close to 22,000. So I think we're in for another scenario where we could actually see a short-term intra-week bounce right now at around 20,000. It's midweek. I think that's completely fair to say. Yes, I remember it, Namdep, and I already responded that I've completely forgot about it, and I'll give it to you next week. Okay? And again, if you want to hear my comments about the books, I've already talked about it earlier at the session. So if you want to rewind it, that's completely fine. But I'll get the name of the books for you next week. Just ask me again next week, and I'll be sure to prepare it. I've taken a note on it. Okay. All right. So I think that's time for tonight. The panel should be starting soon, so just be a little bit mindful of what you're doing tonight. I'm more focused on the Euro USD right now. Considering this, I thought about it. The FOMC, the Bank of England, we've got the ECB. Two of them hike interest rate. I think the ECB is going to be asked questions about whether or not they are going to be tackling inflation by hiking interest rate, or do they plan for something else. So good luck with your trades tonight. Just be mindful. I think the panel has started. So yeah, good luck with your trades, and I'll see you again same time next week.